Hey, hello everyone. So today we're going to solve this problem, LeetCode 994, rotting oranges. So the problem is just that 0 represents an empty cell in a 2D matrix and 1 represents fresh orange, and after fresh the oranges are rotten, which is represented by 2. So this is a rotten orange and the other oranges are fresh, and the one grid with the empty is represented as 0 with no oranges. So what we have to do, so every minute any fresh orange that is 4 directionally adjacent to the rotten orange becomes rotten. So every minute the 4 direction of this rotten orange and horizontal and vertical, and every minute this 4 direction gets rotten. Return the minimum number of minutes that must elapse until no cell has fresh orange. If this is impossible, return -1. So if the rotten, uh, if the all oranges are not about to get rotten, then we have to return -1. And for every minute, all the adjacent horizontal and vertical direction, the oranges gets rotten. So here, for first minute, this and this gets rotten, and the second minute from here it gets this and this, and from third minute from here it gets this, and fourth minute from here it gets this gets rotten. So total output would be 4 in this case of grid input. Here it's not possible, so it returns -1. Here it's 0, since there are already no fresh oranges at minute 0. The answer is just 0. Alright. So, this solution to this problem is basically traversing of 2D matrix and following the DFS algorithm that we usually do for, we have done for uh, number of island problem, word search problem, but there is slight difference in the way how this is about to be solved, because in every minute the horizontal and vertical uh, movement is happening, and that is counted as one. In number of island problem, if you remember, the every move of replacing one with zero is counted as one, but here the counting only happens as one. Just for example, if the rotten orange is in the center of this minute 2 grid, and the oranges are getting rotten on this upward, horizontal, and downward direction at the same time, and this is counted as one. So there is slight difference in counting. First of all, there is slight difference in movement, but deep down the logic is somehow around iterating the 2D grid. So we'll just start with the row and column loop. And I equals 0, I is less than uh, grid dot length I plus plus, and then for j equal to 0 for column, j is less than grid 0 dot length j plus plus. So here we are with row and column values, and we have to check here and that what are the values in the row and column. So if grid of I and j is rotten, so it is rotten. So all rotten oranges would be all rotten oranges location would be kept somewhere, so we can keep location of all the rotten oranges in order to help in iterating again. So we will use here q data structure, which will store the value of row and column, so which will be of int type, and q equal to new. We define the q in the top in form of linked list. All right. So this is the queue, and then the moment the oranges are rotten, we will just put it in the queue dot add, which will be new int, and the value will be I comma j. All right. So this is how it goes for rotten oranges. I'm keeping the row and column value in the queue, and if the uh, and either it is that or it is this condition that grid of I and j is equal to 1. Either it is fresh, so either it is rotten or it is fresh. So if it is fresh, I will just do a fresh count. Int fresh count 0. And if it is fresh, I will just fresh count plus plus. So I'm counting all fresh oranges, and at the same time I am just putting all the rotten oranges row and column index in the queue. And this is the loop. Here it ends with O(n) square complexity. And now I will check. So if this fresh count based on this condition, this third input, if fresh count is 0, then just return 0 from here. And the second case is just to check whether the queue is not empty. While not queue dot is empty, if queue is not empty, now the logic comes here. So if the queue is not empty, we will have movement in horizontal and vertical direction in order to check. Queue is not empty, it means we have rotten oranges, and we have to move horizontally or vertically to make all the rotten oranges into all the non-rotten oranges with one value as 2. So we have to move in direction. So we take here direction to the array as a new int, and here we define the value as 0, 1, 0, -1, 1, 0, and -1, 0. So these are the movements of row and column values in upward and downward direction. So here it goes with this direction array, and now if queue is not empty, we will basically take the element from the queue. So we will first get the size of the queue, because the size of the queue has to be taken, and then importance of this will be known soon. Size equal to queue dot size, and then int which will be rotten equal to q dot poll. Alright, and now we have the rotten array of oranges, and we are going to iterate based on the size of the queue. So the queue has a size, okay. So queue size determines number of rotten oranges. So now I polled the first rotten orange, and let's see, for int I equal to 0, I is less than size of the queue I plus plus. So I took a rotten value, and I will move horizontal and vertical direction. So here I have this direction array, and now new row and new column has to be seen. So int new row equal to this direction. So you have to iterate, insert this for each queue. So the loop will go from 0 to size of the queue, and for each queue value which is rotten oranges, we have to move horizontal and vertical, and we have to count the minute, and we have to reduce the fresh count once we make the fresh orange as rotten. So inside this I will just iterate this direction array, direction this can be made as directions directions. Alright, so iterating this directions array, we will get this direction value, and is it correct? Okay, it will be resolved sooner. Alright, so direction can be made like this. Alright, so iterating this direction array, we will create new row as direction of 0 plus the value. So we are going to move in the horizontal and vertical directions, 0 plus the rotten of 0, and into new column would be direction of 0 plus rotten of 1. This will be also 1. So adding this, now the new row and new column index value is being created, right? So this is directions which is being created as 1, 2, 3, 4, and I am iterating this directions array, and it should work. It will give me a direction type array. For every direction, result a variable. Okay, let's see. So why it's not able to resolve to variable? Type is convert element type into direction. Okay, I haven't defined this variable. So how it's going to be using? Alright, so here it is how it goes. I got a new row, a new column, and now I have to use this new row, new column to check all the values with 2. So if new row is greater than row, or new row is less than new row is greater than 0 and new row is less than row, or new column is greater than 0, or new column is less than column, or these are the boundary conditions that I am checking after modifying the row and column index, because I have to move horizontally and vertically, and this is a direction array which is helping me in to move in this direction. So this is a slightly different trick, and usually we used to do in the rot, in the number of island problem we used to do basically called recursive function. Here we do it with the 2D integer array. So, or you can say that the grid of new row and new column, if that value is equal to 2. So I am supposing you should have the int row as grid dot length and int column as grid 0 dot length. So this is how it goes. Row and column. Now you got the row and column, and if it is equal to 2, so if it is equal to 2, which means we found the rotten orange, and in that case we will just do fresh count minus minus, and we will just make grid of. So if we have found it to be 1, right? If we have found it to be 1, then we have to make it 2. correct, sorry about this. So if I found the orange not to be rotten, then I will make that value new column to be as 2. Alright, so I'm making it as rotten, and I'm decreasing the fresh count of grid of new row and new call, and I am just doing this based on the direction movement of iterating direction array for 4 times, and this is happening. And after this, all right, here it goes. All right, so this is how it is happening. If it's closed, this for loop for direction is closed. This for loop for iterating the size of the queue. So I'm iterating the queue size. I'm iterating the queue basically of a particular size defined, and then after happening this, I have to update the queue as well. So I have to update the queue dot add, because the new orange has got rotten. So I have to update the new row and column. So new int with new row and new column, and now the queue size will be changed, and again this size calculation will be done by checking queue is not empty, and again new size will be given to the queue. This I loop iteration, and again it will come for direction, and the same rule will be followed. So basically the moment we encounter 1, we make it 2, we decrease the fresh count, and we add it into the queue. Got it? So this is how it is happening, and this for loops gets closed, this for loops gets closed again, and the number of times the queue is being added is the number of minutes being occupied, right? Because if the size of the queue is basically number of rotten oranges, which is already there, and based on number of rotten oranges size, we are already taking this, but the size is somewhat. All right, let's see how it goes. And if we have minutes as equal to 0, and we will just count the number of minutes based on the number of values into the queue. And we will check if fresh count is equal to 0. It means we have encountered all the fresh oranges and decrease, make it all rotten. In this case, uh, so if the fresh oranges are 0, we will basically return minutes. This is a ternary operation, or we'll return -1. Alright, so this is how it should work. Q.add, why it is showing error here. Boolean operator, this is Q, and new int, new row, new column, which looks correct to me. Q.add new int type. Alright, this is not the way it should be, basically. And then you have new row, comma, new column. Alright, so this is how it should work. And looking into the size of the queue, grid new row new column equal to 2. That new row new column value, which is 1, I have just made that as 2. Array index out of bounds. So if it is greater than 0 and it is less than row, new column is greater than 0, new column is less than column. If any of this is true, it's saying, but It should not be or. It should all of these conditions should be true. New row should be greater than 0. New column, new row, right? So new row should be greater than 0. New row should be less than row. Just like new column should be greater than 0, and it can be greater than or equal to 0. All right, and it can be less than row. It can be greater than or equal to 0, and again it should be less than column, and it should be at the same time grid of new row new column equal to 1. Then only it will do fresh count minus minus, and it will make it 2, and it will add into the queue. I think it should work like this. Alright, so the answer is wrong. Let's see, two cases are passing. Here expected is 7, output is expected is 4, output is 7. So output is 4, expected is 4, output is 7. So the minutes count, it is basically so if fresh count is equal to 0, basically you have to return minutes, and minus 1. So the difference is that we are calculating 3 more count. The minute value should start with 0, and the moment the queue is encountered as not empty, it will be minute plus plus based on the queue size, and correct. So, and we take the rotten array, and we have to move on the one direction each based on that rotten array, and queue size of queue and rotten I have taken only one. I am not taking the rotten oranges again and again based on the size, because I am iterating for size of the queue. So I should have this inside this value, because every time I am doing queue.poll, and let's see, because every time the rotten oranges are changed. Yep. So here it is, and the initial count of this initial minute expected here is 0, and it is giving me minute plus plus for 0. It should be it will count the minute that 1 minute has been elapsed if it enters here, and it is happening, and it is doing the fresh count minus minus. So if I reduce the count of this minutes by 1, let's see whether all the test cases are passing, because it means the minute value should be initialized as minus 1. Yeah, as of now all the test cases are passing, and the logic revolves on, okay, so this has been accepted. Okay, so I think that the solution was basically trying to use this direction array, and helping us to move in the 4 directions from that rotten orange which is already stored in the queue, and then maintaining the fresh count value after modifying it to uh, rotten orange, and then using that fresh count value and to return the minutes, and the initial value of minutes if reduced by 1, it is basically giving the output, and here it goes. So thank you for watching this problem. See you in the next problem.